Today on Locked On Red Wings, it's rumored that the length is an agreement between Dylan Larkin and Steve Yzerman, but how much should he make per year? Also previewing the game against the San Jose Sharks.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast, while Scotty's a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, as well as the host of Locked On Tigers. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And on today's episode, guys, we are going to talk about the Dylan Larkin contract update. I don't know if we can really say an update, but it's kind of a good opportunity just to rehash that conversation we had in the offseason, as now halfway through the season, very little has come out. But we'll talk about that and talk about comparables and what he should be making, or what we believe he should be making. And then also previewing the game against the San Jose Sharks, the second of two this season. But Scotty, to lead off back with the Dylan Larkin thing, to set the table, give some context to the listeners. Ansar of MLive wrote an article today asking the question, how much should Dylan Larkin make? And in the article, he cited that Steve Yzerman and Larkin seem to be in agreement on the term. 8 years, the maximum you can give a player who is your own. If you hit free agent market, another team can only give them 7. But if you're signing a guy that's your own to a contract, you can give him a max of 8 years. That seems to be fine. That seems to be agreement. I don't think that was ever in dispute. I think at this point, Dylan Larkin was looking for a long-term contract, but it's the number, the amount of money he makes per year that is up for debate, according to Ansar in this article. And this is where it caught me off guard, because the number that he said was Yzerman's camp wanted closer to 8 and Larkin's camp wanted closer to 9. And we had talked, Scotty, about Dylan Larkin's contract situation in the preseason. And we had both, after Matthew Barzal had signed his extension, we were both thinking this is the type of money Dylan Larkin's going to make. And for reference, Matthew Barzal will start making next year $9.15 million a year. And so we were thinking that the top end of Larkin's demand would be 9.5. But if this is true and Larkin's camp's only asking for 9, that means we, at least by our standards, Scotty, are getting him under what we thought he was going to get. I'll ask you, man, how does that make you feel?
I mean, obviously fine. Like, sure. I don't think that anyone's walking around hearing that number and going like, oh my goodness, this is the steal of all steals. Like, we're not getting them for 4, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's still a lot of money. That's a top, whatever, like 20, 30 contract in the league. Like he deserves to be about there. Yeah. So I'm not looking at it going, oh, that's way under what we initially thought. But I think more so I'm just kind of looking at it thinking, yeah, that's probably pretty accurate value by both sides, because they'll probably come to terms somewhere in the middle of those. Just depends on which side of 8.5 it'll be on.
I completely agree. I think that it's not like a Nathan MacKinnon type deal where he took basically a discount because he thought the team was going to win right then and there. But I think that is absolutely fair value. And I think it's unfair of any fan to ever ask their guy. I know Dylan Larkin's a hometown guy. I know he was born and raised a Red Wings fan. But I think it's unfair of any fan to ever ask a player to take less money when NHL careers can be over in an instant.
Yeah.
So I think it's perfectly reasonable that Dylan Larkin asks for fair value. And honestly, in my opinion, anywhere between that $8 and $9 million range is fair value, especially when you look at down the road how much this salary cap is supposed to go up. I think it's only going to increase like 1 or 2 million this offseason, but next offseason after that, it's like 5 million. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I know by 5 years down the road, it's going to be $10 million more, which is going to make, if he gets, let's say they split the difference and go $8.5 million across 8 years, that is great value for Dylan Larkin if he continues this pace that he's on over the last 2 years, which is borderline point per game. Obviously, injuries squandered his production last season and ended his season eventually. But this season, again, he's just shy of a point per game pace. He's again on pace to break his career high. And this isn't all-star money. I keep seeing these tweets, replies to my tweet, and these could just be Dylan Larkin haters as they're out there. And I understand it. I believe that on a Stanley Cup contending team, he's not your first line center. I think he's a very good center and a number one center on most teams. But on a team that's like, if he's on the Lightning, he's a really great number two center. But you're not going to be the number one center over like Steven Stamkos. It's just not going to happen. That's just not, or Austin Matthews. That's not going to work because those guys are superstars. And he's not that. But he is a very good player, and he is an all-star caliber player. Granted, this year it's more of, he's an all-star this year because of the fact that the Red Wings need an all-star, but he has had all-star caliber years. And last year he deserved to be at the all-star game. He was playing great. And I mean, this year, maybe my expectations are a little shifted because of the fact that I expected him to be better, and his production is about the same. But anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent. Let me regroup. This is absolutely fair value. $8.5 million across 8 years for Dylan Larkin is exactly what you would expect when you look at his comparables. Matthew Barzal, who I already said, who makes 9.125, has a career point per game of 0.86 across his career. And that's, I think, 7 seasons long. In fact, I'm looking at, that's Thomas Hertl, who I'll bring up in a second. But right now, yeah, he's across, I think he's in his 8th season right now, Matthew Barzal, which is right around the time Dylan Larkins is. They're about the same age. So he's got a higher point per game. Dylan Larkins is only 0.73 point per game, while Matthew Barzal is 0.86. And so if Dylan Larkin takes slightly less than that, that's fair value. You look at his other comparable that I see a lot online is Thomas Hertl. Thomas Hertl has overcome injury after injury. There have been times where they were wondering if he was even worth it, especially with the Sharks heading into a rebuild. His point per game is 0.67, Scotty, but he makes $8 million. Let me look right here, $8.137 million. So Larkin fits right between those guys in terms of point per game production across their careers. And if you look at Larkin's production these last 2 years, it's just about 0.8. It's about 1.0 point per game. Like he's like 0.95. So if these last 2 years are really what Dylan Larkin is, then that makes that 8.5 theoretical that we're throwing out there all the more reasonable. So I think it's incredible fair value.
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree, obviously. And I think that this is like, you're going to lock your captain up long term, which
That's
is
huge.
great. And you are not going to put yourself in a position where like Crosby's contract is like only a little bit more than like 8.5, right?
Yeah.
And he did it in like 2013. Like, you're not going to be in that situation where like, oh, all of our cap is in one person. Like, we're not even going to be close to that. So, and then like you alluded to earlier, the cap is only going to get higher and higher. I think like I can't foresee anyone having like a huge issue with that amount of money. Like that's a sweet spot. That's if it's enough for him, that's fine for like team building and roster building. I have a hard time seeing any big downsides to locking up your captain for 8 years, and in the present year, it's not even crippling cap money or even close to. Nonetheless, halfway through the deal or 7-8 years into the deal. So I have a hard time seeing anything wrong with anywhere in between 8 and 9 mil.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you mentioned something there about locking your captain up. And I think that is also an undersold part of it. And I think when we come back, we should continue the conversation about what it means for the culture in the locker room to lock up a captain long-term, to commit to a player long-term, which this team hasn't done to that extent yet. So we'll talk about that when we come back. But first, we got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here. How about Brock Purdy, man? That was Purdy.
How about him? Wow.
I'm not the first one to say that one. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number one sports book in America, FanDuel. It's simple as that, guys. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today and to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So, football fans, don't miss out. I'm sorry if you bet on the Cowboys. When are you guys going to ever learn? Place your first $5 bet on one and get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockdown. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. I'm waiting for Scotty to find a way to twist that slogan into a fun moniker at the end.
Yeah, I gotta
work on that.
Get in the shop on that one.
Yeah, he's gonna be chopping it up in front of the microphone later on, guys. No, that's not gonna work. Continuing the conversation about Dylan Larkin, more so than the money, more so about his individual play and what he is on the ice, what he is in the locker room. Obviously, he's a captain, he's a leader, and he's grown into that role. Henrik Zetterberg basically groomed him to be captain and groomed him out of this. I wouldn't call him ever at any point. He never seemed immature. On the ice, sometimes when he was like 18, there'd be antics, but what 18-year-old doesn't have antics, right? But he's definitely matured into that role, and he is a leader in that locker room for a reason. And so I think locking up your captain for 8 years, it doesn't just send a signal to the guys that this guy's here to stay, but it sends a signal to the guys in the locker room on the rebuild that we're committing to this core, and that the guys in that locker room are now part of something that has substance. The last 4 or 5 years, there hasn't been a guy in that locker room who's had a contract go past this season. They just didn't. Robbie Fabry last season when he signed his extension, Vrana when he signed his extension. But this season was really the end up until those guys signed contracts last year. And then this offseason, we saw Kopp and Sherratt, but none of those contracts were 8 years. 8 years is a commitment to the future. And if you're committing to a guy that Yzerman didn't draft, but the Red Wings drafted in the first round at, 15th overall or whatever it was, and this is your guy and you picked him, that's a commitment to the culture in the locker room and a commitment to the core. And I love that if the Red Wings could lock that up, because it just reassures the locker room and I think the fan base that this guy's here to stay and that this core is here to stay. And when this team's ready to compete, this is the guy who's going to be leading the way. For sure, yeah. And I think the biggest thing, like you said there, was the message that it sends to everyone else in the locker room, that like the standard for just how you act on and off the ice, how you prepare yourself for game day and whatnot. Like, again, like Larkin is not a point and a half, like 115 point in a season, goal scorer, like producer, but that doesn't mean that he can't be one of the best examples on like how to carry yourself in the league. And that's clearly what not only the previous regime saw in Larkin, but the current one did too. And so that being I think that's the biggest message that it sends, just to the players that are here now, obviously get that message received immediately, but also like every player that then is a Detroit Red Wing for the next 8 years. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like that's the whole point. So I think that it's definitely a message that is sent to the players. And I think that that's a good thing. Again, like I'll take that, none of us are in the locker room. None of us know how all that works and how the leadership qualities really translate into practice and in the locker room and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the judgment call of him being the standard is one that I think everyone is pretty okay with, especially again for that money. I mean, to wrap up the conversation, get it done, Stevie. Let's get Larkin extended. And if it's between, like I said, if it's between 8 and 9, that would be the Goldilocks zone for me. I'd be so happy. I was mentally prepared somewhere between 9 and 10, just because of the Matthew Barzal raising that bar, because that contract, them being comparable in my head, raising that bar. So when I heard 8 to 9, I'm like, that is fair value. It's not a discount like Matt McKinnon's current extension, but the one he's coming off of. But like, you're not killing your cap on a signing like that. But it also depends on, and we talked about the fact that, the Red Wings have $35 million coming off the books this offseason if nobody gets re-signed, which obviously some of them are going to be Jake Woolman, who we will talk about at length in a different episode. But if Larkin gets re-signed, I just feel like that definitely is the end for Tyler Bertuzzi as a Red Wing. Not that I want it to be the end. I'd love to keep T-Bert long-term, but just looking at the logistics of it, I don't, and we've had this conversation, I don't think you can sign Larkin, Bertuzzi, and then eventually Seider and Raymond, and eventually even further down the line, Edvinsson. If
That's a
he's
lot of money locked up into 4 players
Yes.
who have yet to prove that they can be on the core of a like playoff team, period, even
Yes.
nonetheless a deep running playoff team.
So I think getting rid of Bertuzzi is just in the cards. I think it makes logical sense. And again,
I
don't
think if
want
Larkin's extension, I'm at the point now where, again, not that I'm like campaigning for it or really want it to happen per se, but I'm in the camp now at this point really where I think Bert is gone. Whether it's at the deadline, well, I guess
it has to be
probably
at
at
the
the
deadline,
deadline.
man. You can't let him walk away for free. If he's
You're
not
right,
traded
yeah,
at the
like
deadline, he
especially
better.
if you're out of contention anyway.
I will say
The only thing that really you could counter argue is like Bert has really had a lot of reasons where he like hasn't been on the ice, a lot of injuries obviously, and there's some slim argument of like, hey, could you like, is his value low enough at this point where because of all of the reasons and because of all the injuries and because of all the time missed, where you could like swoop in and kind of lowball an offer, and him and his camp would be kind of pressed to take it because of the lack of leverage because he hasn't been on the ice. You know what I'm saying? Like
No,
that.
that's
I
exactly
think
what I was
that's
about
like
to
the
say.
only counter argument, and I don't believe that. So
That is
like,
literally what I was about to say, Scotty. I was about to say you could argue because of his lack of production and inability to stay on the ice, you could get him on a short-term, another like prove it contract, so to speak. Like there's no way any team is going to want. I mean, I think if he hits free agency, some team is going to give him 5-6 years. I think that's just how free agency works. It's a bidding war. But if he stays with the Red Wings and he like doesn't like the offers he's getting, he could come back to the Red Wings on a short-term deal, or he could pull John Klingberg and go to Anaheim for 1 year and for $7 million and just have an awful season. Not saying he would have an awful season. That was just a shot at John Klingberg because he's having an awful season after trying to secure the bag this last year. Remember when I wanted him? Crazy. Anyways, another tangent. When it comes to Tyler Bertuzzi, it does make sense that because of this season, how it's playing out for him, he comes back on a shorter term, cheaper deal, which I mean, I'd be all for.
There's just like, how many of those are you comfortable doing? Like that seems
I think this
like he's just been kicking the can down the road so often because of injuries that like
he's already 27, man.
Yeah, this would be like the third time he's kind of done that, second or third time he's done that. Yeah.
I mean, 27 in hockey terms is like ancient. But if they do decide to sell him at the deadline, and I want to just throw this out here, and it'll be a quick conversation because Vancouver Canucks beat writer did say today that Detroit is a team of interest in contacting the Vancouver Canucks on Bo Horvat. Now, I know this kind of directly contradicts what I just said about you can't sign Larkin and Bertuzzi and Moritz Seider and Raymond, and also get then Bo Horvat if you trade Tyler Bertuzzi to them. I know they're asking for 3 players, one of them being a prospect. But if they're looking based on the philosophy that the Vancouver Canucks have set out, if what their general manager has said, I think it's Jim Benning, or is it Rutherford? I think it's Rutherford now. Based on what their general manager has said, that they're not looking to rebuild, they're looking to retool, Scotty. Tyler Bertuzzi fits that bill. You exchange 2 UFAs, pending UFAs, both looking to get paid, and the Vancouver Canucks go, we will sign you to that contract that you want because we're looking to keep our window, whatever window they think they have, which doesn't exist, open. Bertuzzi could be a focal point in that trade, and you could be looking at a Verona Mantha situation where Bo Horvat is, I believe, a couple years younger. No, he's the same exact age. He's also 27. He's making $5.5 million a year coming off that contract, and his career point per game is 0.67, which is exactly what Thomas Hertl's making. So, yes, you'd be looking at signing another forward to a longer-term contract, and we've talked about him before, but you're looking at signing another forward to a longer-term contract. But Bo Horvat, like, his style of play is going to age better than Tyler Bertuzzi's. I think you're getting the better player. Now, if you have to give up another player and a prospect, it depends on what that would be.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to give up
my
Simon
counter is,
Edmondson
why would they do that then?
because the Red Wings are a team looking to get better now. Like, they're now a team looking to take a step forward, at least in my opinion.
Not the Red Wings.
Forward. Oh, why the Vancouver Canucks would take
why
that?
Vancouver would
well,
do that?
it would depend on what else you're sending them. So if you're sending them another serviceable player and one of your higher end prospects, it would just depend, man. If you're sending them Bertuzzi, you're not getting Edvinsson, you're not getting Casper. Like, I would float out there a Wallander who has been having a great game.
But at that rate, wouldn't you just like kind of risk it and be like, okay, we'll just try and take a stab at him when he's a UFA in 4 months and hope that whoever he's traded to doesn't re-sign him?
But that's the thing is, I don't think any team's going to trade for him without the knowledge that they can immediately extend him. I don't know. I don't know.
There could be a
there's plenty of wrinkles out there.
Boston team that just wants him for half a year to help their cup push, and then
I could totally see Boston going for him.
Yeah,
like the way that their season is panning out, it's cup or bust for them.
Right, that's fine. And like, there's 5-6 teams that probably all have that mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just throwing the conversation
to pay
out
him
there
long term.
That it could be mutually beneficial to both teams if these players want to sign like extensions.
It could
post
for sure. It could for sure. I struggle to see. I feel like Vancouver would rather just sell him to someone who's willing to give them like all pieces, like younger pieces for like NHL ready, but still like younger pieces for the future, than rather than like same age, same-ish production, different style of play.
It depends, man. I don't know. That's the thing is.
No, I don't either.
The Vancouver Canucks are such a weird position where there'll be sellers at the deadline, but they're not trying to sell. They're trying to get assets back that are comparable because they want to try and keep this core. So like if they were to trade Horvat to the Bruins, they would want 3 players, 2 of which be NHL ready, 1 of which be a high-end prospect back. And what if the Bruins are going to make a playoff push? What current NHL caliber players do they have that they want to offer for Bo Horvat? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like for the Vancouver Canucks, they're going to be looking to trade with a team that's coming up in their rebuild. And because Bo Horvat has no trade clause, so he can't pick and choose what team he goes to. So for the Vancouver Canucks, for the Vancouver Canucks standpoint, they don't have to go to a team that's trying to win it all. They can go to a team that has a plethora of pieces in the cabinet, like a rebuilding team like the Red Wings. So I'm just throwing the argument out there. It's probably not going to happen, but I thought it was interesting that Steve Yzerman is kicking the tires on this, reportedly kicking the tires on this. So it's a fun conversation. I love trade scenario conversations. They're really fun. But when we come back, we'll talk about the San Jose Sharks game preview. But before we get to that, I got to talk to you guys today about AG1. This next product is a product you got to use literally every day. Start taking AG1 because with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. Start taking AG1 because it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat gluten-free, keto, paleo, dairy-free, or, again, gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Less than $3 a day you're investing in your health. It's cheaper than getting all the different supplements yourself. It's all-in-one nutritional insurance, and it has over 7,000 5-star reviews and recommended by a plethora of professional athletes like the Detroit Tigers' Tarek Skubal. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That is it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Let's move on. Our game preview against the San Jose Sharks. These 2 teams have already met once this season, and the Red Wings pounded the Sharks 7-4. That wasn't a stretch in November there, Scotty, where the Red Wings were actually winning games like they should.
Yeah.
I believe they beat the Ducks pretty handily too in that stretch. Lost to the Kings though, but the Kings are a better team. So when you're talking about the Sharks now coming to Detroit, hometown team, they're 7th in the Pacific Division. They're awful, with the exception of a few players, obviously being Erik Karlsson, Timo Meier, and Tomas Hertl. I mean, I don't care, man. I don't care. This is another game where you got to win.
Yeah, it is. And like, just to point out something that we've talked about on this show a lot lately, especially, the Red Wings leading goal scorer is double-digit goals behind the leading goal scorer for the San Jose Sharks. Open the door, let that porcelain sink in. That's brutal. Okay? Like, I don't care. Like, that will continue to be something that I will just highlight night in and night out. Like, that's the thing number one in my eyes that this team needs going forward. And like, it really kind of ruins like game previews, because I'm just like, well, we're the better team. We probably should, and like, dare I even say, will play pretty solid 5-on-5, at least hang with them, maybe even play better, right? But none of it is going to matter if it's just one of those nights where we can't put pucks in the back of the net. And like, that's a lot of nights lately. And like, I mean, we saw it against Arizona. Arizona and San Jose are in the same tier, right? We saw it against Columbus. Like, like it's just, it's one of those things where if whether it's one person, whether it's a line, a unit, whatever, it doesn't matter. If some part of the team is able to score consistently that night, then we're golden. Like, the 5-on-5 play has taken some steps from the very beginning of the season when we thought it was going to be, like bottom 3 in the league. But like, none of that's going to matter if there's no consistent goal scoring. And that's just where we are on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, I think the storyline for the San Jose Sharks this season, though, is obviously Erik Karlsson.
For sure.
He leads all defensemen in points by 10 points at 32 years old. Everyone thinking he was a bust. Now, granted, I still don't. He's making like $9.5 million a year. He's finally living up to that contract. Let's just say that. But at 32 years old, he's had a fantastic bounce back season. I think we talked about this back in the first time they played it. And he hasn't cooled off. I mean, 62 points in 48 games played, 47 assists at the halfway marker. I mean, he's on point pace for over 100 points this season.
Yeah.
At 32 years old.
Yeah, unbelievably impressive.
He's going to have a better season point production wise, unless he phenomenally cools off, than he ever did with the Senators when he was considered one of the best defensemen in the league at 32. I mean, if you're the San Jose Sharks, you're looking at this, and I mean, I know you're going to have to retain salary because of how much he makes, but a playoff push team is going to want Erik Karlsson on the back end with how he's
100%.
performing. And then Timo Meier is a similar situation where I don't know. He's a guy they could keep around as a core piece, but also I could see them selling because they're entering a rebuild. 47
He's like
points
a week away
from
from being a 30-goal scorer.
Yeah,
like
27 goals.
Yeah, he could be a 30-goal scorer before the All-Star break.
Yeah, Tomas Hertl, obviously, as we were already talking about, as a comparable, which great. I didn't even intend that as a full circle moment. But Tomas Hertl,
admit that,
because
credit.
Everyone knows I'm not that smart, Scotty. Come on, everyone knows
you said it.
But you're not disagreeing. 42 points in 46 games played for Tomas Hertl. So they have offense. That's for sure. But they sure as hell don't have defense, because despite Erik Karlsson's great offensive stats, defensively, he's been kind of getting. You don't play Erik Karlsson for his defense. He's a Cale Makar.
Yeah, and we've had plenty of those like in Detroit over the last couple of years. Like, that's definitely a thing.
They're 7th in the Pacific Division, just to throw that out there for you guys. They're second to last, I believe, ahead of Anaheim.
On the Bedard train.
Full on the Bedard train. I don't blame them. If I'm Connor Bedard, I'm hoping I go to the West Coast and not like Columbus.
I mean, Columbus would be that'd be a heck of a storyline. Johnny
Or
Hockey
Philly.
and Bedard in 2 straight off seasons. That would scoot along a rebuild rather nicely, I'd say.
That's a good point. That's a solid point.
I think the Ducks are a perfect fit.
Oh God, with Zegras and God, who's that defensive prospect?
McTavish on the
you.
center line as well, for sure. They got a lot cooking over there. And I know like they're garbage this year and that's fine, but like they got some. I think him going there would be the perfect fit, but
I mean,
there's a lot. I mean, everyone
good on
could
the Sharks,
use,
too.
but hard, right? Like it's not like oh, like this team he would suck here or whatever. Like
imagine the Edmonton Oilers bottoming out and then getting Connor Bedard to go with McDavid and Draisaitl.
You're sick. You're a
Listen,
real sicko for that.
I have strong feelings towards Edmonton and their lack of ability to develop talent. I have strong feelings about that. James Reimer, though,
maybe
is
Buffalo will win the lotto. Then we'll never hear from Bedard ever again.
Well, until he demands a trade.
Yeah.
James Reimer has played 26 games for them. He's got a save percentage of .895. Capo Kakkonen has had 19 games. He's got a save percentage of .869. So their defense isn't very good and their goaltending is worse. So this could very well turn into a shootout as the Red Wings goal scoring has improved of late. And I think the last 5 or 6 games, they've had 3 or more goals, with the exception of the Philadelphia Flyers game where they had 1.
Right, yeah.
But excluding that, their offense has been producing more goals. The Sharks score a lot of goals, but they don't stop a lot of goals either. Goaltending wise for the Wings, Husso has had 2 back-to-back games. He's got a save percentage up to .901, just a hair above 900. He's just keep it. If he can get back to the average of like 909, I'll be happy
for sure.
But I know Magnus Hellberg. I know Husso's starting tomorrow. That's not up for debate. Malone said so, but Magnus Hellberg is going to get one of the 2 next games after that. So
yeah, because we got a busy week, and then obviously beginning of February we'll take some time off. So
yeah, obviously All-Star break coming up after what, this week? Is it next week? All-Star break?
So.
Oh man, we're gonna have to plan out our week without hockey.
We already have some ideas cooking.
Yeah, they're 21st in the league at 5-on-5. We do have some ideas cooking, by the way. Not to dismiss what you just said, but 5-on-5, the Sharks are like 21st in the league. I don't know. I read those stats and they just don't mean anything to me anymore because the Red Wings are so inconsistent that who cares? Who cares how the Sharks are good at what the Sharks are good at?
They've lost to the Blue Jackets and the Coyotes
and
lately,
the Flyers,
but they also have like outplayed the Maple Leafs.
They beat the Leafs. They beat the Jets. They beat the Lightning twice. They beat, who did they just beat also? The Vegas Golden Knights. Like,
who knows?
Well, who knows what team you're getting on any given night?
Tune in tonight. Find out.
So all that stuff, like I love doing that statistical stuff at the start of the season, like break down the opponent. But at the end, it doesn't matter because we don't know what version of the Red Wings we're gonna get.
For real.
FanDuel odds on this game, Scotty. The point spread, the goal spread is the puck line as they have it is a 1.5, and it's that for every single game ever.
Yep, that's how hockey works, bud.
That's how hockey works because they have to factor in the empty net goal. The favorite is the plus a 1.5 for the Sharks. So the Sharks are the underdog, and they think they're going to keep it to a 1.5.
Right. Yeah. It's always a 1.5 in hockey and baseball, pretty much exclusively. Like there's a couple of outliers. Like I think there was a game last year when Toronto played Arizona that it went up to 2.5 and everybody freaked out. And then I think the Coyotes outright won because Toronto. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, like again, like just really piggybacks off the conversation we just had. Like we should win. We should probably win by more than a goal as well. But like, are you going to say that with confidence? Because I'm not.
I would absolutely take the Sharks puck line as minus 196.
Yeah,
I think they'll keep it within 2.
Will.
Red Wings are just straight out favorites, minus 150. Sharks are underdogs, plus 125 if you're taking it outright. Over under, Scotty.
Did you say 125?
125 underdogs.
Like that's just you're at home and you're playing the Sharks and they're only a plus 125, man. Like
you're only a minus 150 favorite. Like that's like compare that to the Calgary Flames who are a minus 360 favorite and the Blue Jackets a plus 280 underdog with the Flames at home. Like that's a
home game against one of the worst teams in the NHL that's trying to lose.
Yeah. The over under 6.5. They're both minus odds. they could go either way. They're thinking.
Right. Yeah, I'll take the over.
I think I'll take the over in this one too. I think this will be all offense. What do they say? Pedal to the metal, no breaks.
Right.
So,
No breaks, all gas.
until Ville Husso or until Capo Kakkonen goes in as the backup and has
The game
makes
of
a
his life.
25 save shutty.
Right. 50 shots, 1 goal.
So that's your FanDuel odds, guys. Go ahead and check those out at FanDuel Sportsbook. And then, Scotty, for us here, do you have any final thoughts?
We ball.
You ball. We'll be back tomorrow with a post-game recap. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.